Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Professor of Media Production and Communication here at Mid-America Christian University, and I am back with a video discussion prompt for our class COMM4103, Special Topics in Media Studies. Our focus in this class is Mythic Media in America, and we're going to be examining Mythic media from a number of angles. So, for example, your main angle of studying Mythic media in this course is through the selection and reading and the slow process of analyzing a graphic novel. And we're also simultaneously looking at Mythic media in a wider scale across the history of the U.S., the ways that we make myths in this country. And we can think of myth making as something that is cultural, that is social, that could be political, and certainly resonating. Now, classically, people tend to look in the past and consider those artifacts of antiquity the stuff of myths and myth making. But in fact, there is a great argument to be made that we are very much in the business of myths and myth making in our country and in our culture. And popular culture is a way in which we update and invent and add to myths. And so that's going to be a focus in our week 2 discussion, myths and myth making. If you will look back to the week 1 readings and resources page on Canvas, at the very bottom, you're going to see a hyperlink to a scan. It's an excerpt. It's an educational fair use excerpt from a very long book. You're welcome for not buying that book. Mythography from William Doty. If you'll take that time to just skim through a couple of those pages, kind of get a feel for that reading, you're going to have an understanding of the direction we want to take week 2 video discussion. So we're bridging something that was at least available or introduced to us in week 1. We're going to carry it into week 2 to help prompt where we go and seek out information. And so here is what we're going to be interested in talking about for this video discussion prompt in week 2. First of all, we want you to isolate and share a definition of a myth. All right, so myths, myth making, mythos, these are all interrelated terms that, depending on the source that you go to, you could find a different definition for. And so we've already put one in your hands with the William Doty excerpt, which you can find in Canvas down at the bottom of the LinkedIn to the week 1 readings and resources. But there's so many other locations you could find a definition for myths or myth making or mythos. All right, and so I'm now expanding that to include all 3 of those terms. Now, they're related terms, but like any good key term, the distinctness of its spelling presents new and different meaning. All right, and so let's collectively learn together by researching and then reporting some definitions about myths and myth making. So isolate and share a definition of a myth. That's part 1. Part 2, all right, part 2. This is a 2-part, kind of a scavenger hunt for information. We want you to locate an ancient myth, a myth of antiquity or times past, and share what it's about. So in other words, do a little research on a myth of the past. And, I think a go-to in Western society is to maybe think about Greek myths or Roman myths and so on. There's a well of places you can go to explore myths of history past. All right, so locate a myth, an ancient myth, and share what it's about. So a short story about what's its basic understanding that was cultivated around the mythos, the mythic idea. And then the final part of this prompt. So we're locating a definition of a myth. We're sharing that definition. We're locating an ancient myth. We're explaining an aspect or an element or the basic summary of that myth. And then we want you to share how that myth has updated or changed over time, how it has either stayed the same or evolved in different ways. And so this is the part where we're applying a little bit of critical thinking to something we've researched and found. So all three of these stages, very healthy toward our purpose. We're going to be learning together. Yes, a couple of ropes, but listen, I've been reading reports the internet is doomed in light of what is or isn't being invested in it in today's age. Now, but for now, we still have parts of the internet working for us. So hopefully it's the research parts. Let's do some digging, find some definitions of myths or mythic or mythos. You don't have to look up all three. We're interested in some communal learning here. And then come up with, present to us an ancient myth, and then trace it through time, perhaps a few changes or updates or ways that it gets re-looked at, revisited, and reinterpreted even. I'm excited about it. It's a little more challenging, but I promise it's going to make for a stimulating series of conversations here. And I'm excited to engage in this material with you all. And we're looking forward to having that and hosting these talks on our discussion space here. Thank you all.